What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. This podcast is sponsored by Berman Falk Hospitality Group, a design-driven furniture manufacturer who specializes in custom case goods and seating for hotel guest rooms. Today's guest is a professional with an entrepreneurial spirit and a passion for leading hospitality operations. He has over a decade of experience in the industry and previously ran his own event coordination company, Tekea. He's a four-time winner of Spain's leading serviced apartment brand at the World Travel Awards. He's the Chief Executive Officer at Stay U-nique in Spain. Ladies and gentlemen, Sebastián Torres-Calderón. Welcome, Sebastián.
Hello, Dan. Thank you for having me.
I should say bienvenidos.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And then for those of you who don't know, he's in Spain currently, but you're originally from Peru. Where in Peru?
Lima, Peru.
From Lima. Wonderful. I love Peru. I went there a long time ago, and I need to go back. So Sebastián is in the short-term rental space as far as managing, optimizing, and making that experience as seamless as possible for investors, for guests, for owners, kind of tying all the stakeholders together in Spain. And there's a lot of headwinds that this industry has, and I want to dig into that, but I don't think I've had very many people from the short-term rental space on the podcast over the past 4 years, in fact, maybe ever. And I'm very intrigued by it because hospitality is not necessarily just hotels or restaurants. It's basically experience and experience between people. So before we get there and digging into that, Sebastián, how do you define hospitality?
Great. Thank you, Dan. I think that when you ask around to people which is that week that they're expecting the most of the year or that night out that they are expecting to be with the wife or the friends, it's where they encounter to us, right? Because in hospitality, we touch everything. We are in restaurants, in the tour you booked, in the accommodation, the hotel, or a short-term rental, they are staying, right? And they are giving us those precious moments and saying, hey, please make this a memorable moment. And that's a huge responsibility for us. It's a really serious responsibility. People are taking more and more serious their free time nowadays. And for me, that's incredible. Having the opportunity to take that time and make it something that they will remember forever and get to do that every day, that's amazing.
Mm. And I would imagine with short-term rentals, if you were to make a pie chart of most of the guests or the renters who are entering your pool of properties, and just to give an idea of scale, how many apartments do you have in Spain currently?
We have 420 apartments. That it's, if you count the rooms, are nearly 1,000 rooms. And we receive, we do 60 check-ins every day, 60 cleanings every day. Wow. We receive nearly more than 1,000 days per month.
Okay. And then if you were to do a pie chart of the types of guests that are staying, is it families, business, remote workers, or digital nomads? Like what's your distribution of guests?
Depends on the location, I would say, because we are in Barcelona, we're in Sevilla, and we are in Malaga. And I would say that in Sevilla and Malaga, it's more vacational kind of guest. And then you have Barcelona, that it's a mix because you have huge congress during the year, like the Mobile World Congress that is in March. That is the cell phone the most big cell phone congress in the world. So it's huge, and then the city is full. And then the rest of the year you have another good events. Concerts are getting really big here in Spain, and then you have the vacational. So I would say it's part-time vacational, part-time workers that come through events. I would say digital nomad, it's more for a temporary stays. So people that are staying more than 1 month, maybe 2 months, they want to come to Barcelona because it's cheaper and because there is a good weather, there is good food. But we are not. We did that in the past, but we are not doing that anymore.
Okay, thank you. So that sets the stage for a lot of questions I have. So most of the people I talk to are architects, designers, owners, developers, hotel management companies, project managers, people who are building in the hotel space, restaurant space, bar space. Oftentimes, when we talk about hospitality, it's how do you meet the guest where they are? But with 420 apartments spread out all over, it's hard to meet the guests where they are because it's all these apartments all over the city. It's not like you're in one structure. And most of the other conversations that I have with people, it has to do with interpersonal connections, correct? And sometimes we talk about technology, and technology has a place within our hospitality industry. But I would think that part of the joy of staying in an apartment with a family, and I've done these before, and I've had great experiences, is part of that experience of creating a memorable memory is having it be frictionless and seamless. I haven't had a lot of conversations about how technology helps do that, but I would imagine with all of your properties distributed over all the cities you mentioned within Spain, that technology plays a huge role in that memory creating experience. But how do you make that technology feel interpersonal, or how do you make that enhance that experience of hospitality as people come to Spain for extended stays?
Yeah, good question. I think technology has or touch a lot of parts, right? Because now we're going to talk about guests, but we can talk about the cleaners, right? And how when you're in a building, it's really easy because a cleaner knows to do he has to do, I don't know, 10 rooms in a day, and that's it. And it's really easy to supervise and everything. But if you have, as you said, 300 locations or 400 locations rather around the city, then you cannot supervise all the apartments. So you're not going to make sure the cleaner has done it perfectly or not, right? So you start that technology there. And the cleaner, do you give her keys or not? And there's another technology there, right? Because nearly all of the apartments we have has remote locks. So they can operate with their phones, the guest, the cleaner, the maintenance, anyone. So they don't need keys. So that's a checker part for that. And then the cleaners, for example, when they go and they do a cleaning, they need to take a lot of pictures and upload it to an app. So that app, we make sure the standards of cleaners are following, no? So the guest is coming and know that it's gonna find an apartment that is perfectly clean. Because I think when I don't know if that's gonna happen in the future, but I think when you reserve an apartment now, you're kind of doubting. Is it gonna be like a picture? Is this gonna be what I'm expecting?
Yeah, there's always a bit of a surprise, like, ooh, because there is like, it's not as well, in my experience, you stay at a hotel. One of the reasons why I prefer to stay at a hotel as a business traveler, because if I get in late or my flights are late, I want a seamless experience. I don't want surprises. When I'm going with my family and we want a bigger place, or other families, we're expecting, okay, maybe the key isn't going to work. Maybe there's always something with a short-term rental, in my experience. I'm not saying with everyone, but how do you minimize, and is one of your goals to have that first experience look like the photo?
Because we measure everything, and it's like the check-in, right? You are saying maybe the smart lock isn't working, maybe the Wi-Fi is down or the electricity is down, and the smart lock isn't working, and that has happened to us more times that I wanted, but it has happened. But then you start measuring everything. So how many times this is happening per week and per month, and how can you reduce that number? And the idea is to reduce it to 0%, right? Emergencies are going to happen, and then you need to be ready. If something like that happens, and the guests need to be able to contact us, and we need to attend that in less than an hour or 30 minutes, or find a way to solve that. Because that's the second part, right? You found a problem, you cannot enter the apartment, and then it's going to take 3 hours or 2 hours for someone to come and open the door. Then the experience is ruined.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really love that you just said, and I think a lot of this will unfold in this conversation. Um, you said you measure everything. I'm a firm believer that if you're every business, whether it's short-term rentals or you're making furniture or you're running a design firm, has challenges. And we're always like obsessive about reducing the challenges and trying to make that experience frictionless. But you can't change, I firmly believe you cannot change anything, a recurring issue, unless you measure it. And then if you measure it, like in the case of your keyless entry, is it the door that's failing or the phone app? Or is it a battery or is it something else? Like you have to track and see and then kind of like narrow down all the possible outcomes um, to do that. And as a practitioner at your company of EOS or the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, um, how many times, like when you first got there in an operational capacity and now you're CEO, what was the failure rate in the beginning? And then how has it improved through measuring? Like, how did you take that one thing? And I'm sure at the heart of that measurement was improving the guest experience, obviously, I would think. But how has that improved and how did you track it physically?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about EOS, but we can start talking about the scorecard, right? And the scorecard is something. It's a key element of EOS because it's the list of KPIs and actions that you are measuring every week in order to accomplish your goals, right? And when you do it in the leadership team, for me, it has lower to none effect. But when you do that for all the company, so you make sure every team has a scorecard that they need to follow. So the maintenance guys has a scorecard of how many tasks or percentage of tasks they say they have gone, and in how much time they have solved an average task. And then you have the same for the cleaners, in what time they are cleaning the apartment, what is the NPS of the cleaning rating in Airbnb. And then you have the guest department that also has in how much time we're solving the issues, which is our guest communication rating in Airbnb. And we measure every week, and every time, every people in the company is measuring that. So that's why they say when you do it in the leadership team only, but then when you spread around the company and everyone know they have a KPI and they need to accomplish in their individual departments, then everything starts to making sense because your job is more important. Uh, and I can say you some numbers, but we have reduced a lot since we start measuring these things. Guest communication, guest checking, all of that. Our ratings are I think are really high for the amount of apartments we have. We have in booking an average rating across all our properties of 8.8, which was 8.4 2 years ago. So yeah, I think EOS and a scorecard help us get in there.
When you started working at Stay U-nique, the company had already existed and you came in at what level?
I started in January 2020, so 2 months before COVID, and we had 90 to 100 apartments in that moment. And I came as a customer journey intern. So I was handling reservation, guest communication, some check-ins.
Wow. And then I believe, so for those of you who don't know, EOS is based on this book Traction by Gino Wickman. I'm a big proponent of it. And it's the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it just basically gives a simple framework or operating system for any and all businesses that you can modify to the uniqueness of your business. So if you started just before COVID, when did you guys explore implementing EOS across your company? And how long did it take for EOS to deliver on your promise of what hospitality means?
Okay, so when COVID hit, it's a chaos for hospitality, right? It's everything is a mess because we went, and it was a mobile world congress in 5 days, and they canceled it because it was March, and we were at occupancy rates of 98%, so all the apartments were full, and suddenly the next day all the apartments were empty because everyone leaves, and and it was a mess. And then I can tell you after what we did, and we passed everything to Mitcham Rentals in order to uh, keep the owners happy, right? Or keep the owners loyal to us, because the fact that the other companies, what they did, right? They close, they say the owner, sorry, there's nothing I can do. There's COVID in the middle, and the owners were left handed with apartments empty and no income at all, right? So what we say is we're gonna pass everything to midterm, and then we're gonna keep paying the owners the money that we receive. We're not gonna keep anything. We're gonna give everything that we received. That it wasn't a lot, but we're gonna handle 100% to the owners.
Oh, wow. So you acted as a pass through just to help the owners stabilize. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
we work for free, uh, and but that helped us a lot because we didn't lose any contract, while our competitors lose their contract, and those contracts that the competitor lose came to us.
And then you went from 100 to almost 400. So you basically quadrupled in 5 years.
I think that in that year post COVID, we doubled. So we went to
Wow.
100 to 200. So we doubled the operations. We had half of the team, because half of the team were already leave because of COVID, and everything started to be very blue, right? Because what do we do now? How do we handle the operations? How do we grow? Do we need to grow, and so on? And that's what started to happen to companies when they started to grow, right? And that's what we said, we need a system. And it was Enrique that was the founder that said, I has read this book. I think it was Traction, and I know an implementer because it has implemented EOS in a company of a friend of mine. And then we meet with him. His name was Jörg. He was a German guy, uh, and and then we because they show us a proven process, right? This is what we are gonna do. This is what's gonna happen, and this is what how's it gonna grow. And it was very easy to see it, to see the future with that. So we started with EOS, and we decided, hey, we need to do that. We did it with the implementer for the first 2 years. So you have a 1 year meeting, and then you divide a year in quarters, and you have a meeting every quarter. So you set up goals.
And was it just for the executive team or did you do it for departments as well?
Uh, First, you do it for the executive team, so the leadership team in EOS, in EOS vocabulary per se, and then it's a task of every manager to take that to their teams, and to their teams if they have them.
Wonderful. And then over the course of that 2 years, and you're starting to measure everything and you're building out your scoreboard or scorecard for your executive team and then all the departments. You said something a couple minutes ago where the scorecard is not as important for the executive team as it is for all the departments. But in my experience, you have to kind of like cast this wide net to start measuring as many things as you can, but then narrow it down to like 5 to 15 of the most important KPIs for leadership team, for operations, sales, finance. How long did it take you to really develop those scorecards for your leadership team and then everything else?
There's a say in EOS they used to make, is that imagine if you're the owner of the company and you're stranded in an island, and they can only give you a piece of paper with 10, like you say, 5 to 15 measurements, and you're gonna say you're gonna have that every week, and you're not gonna have anything else, no phone or nothing. Will you be able to say if the company is going okay or not? Then that's the measurements you need, and that's what we try to think, right? And the scorecard is funny because you can put KPIs there that are result based, but what the EOS want you to do is that you put action based KPIs. So it's not uh, how many sales we have closed this week, is how many cold calls I have done in order to close that amount of sales. So if I need to do 500 calls, then have I done the 500 calls that is in my threshold in order to, I don't know, achieve the X amount of sales that I have?
So in effect, it's a leading indicator. Each of those is a leading indicator.
Yeah, action based is what they say, but yeah.
And then as these developed, as your EOS scorecards developed by department, how long did it take, and what were the measurements that you saw the biggest increase in your net promoter score from the guest experience perspective?
I think there were two kind of things because it's true that you have the scorecard and it's really important, but then you also have the rocks, right, and the project. So you set up goals for the year, and then first you set up goal for 10 years, and this is really high level, right? You say where I want to be in 10 years.
Really visionary, like long-term vision. You're in the vision space. Where do we all want to be in 10 years? And then you back into, what is it, 3 year and then 1 year?
Yeah, 3 years, and then you go to 1 year, and then you go to quarters. So if you say I want to be here in 3 years, then you said, okay, then in 1 year I need to do this in order to be there in 3 years. And those year goals, then in theory you break it into four little projects that are the big project that you're gonna end at the end, right? So
and those are the rocks.
Those are the rocks that you divide into quarters. It's every 90 days. So what's the most important things that we need to attack in the next 90 days in order to accomplish our goals? That's the constant mindset, right?
And then I just want to, I want to fill everyone. The reason why I believe they're called rocks is because if you imagine having an empty glass or a vase and you have sand pebbles, which are your day to day, just this is what I have to do to keep the bus moving in the right direction. Those things are going to keep happening. But to really move the company forward and get to your long-term vision, you have to do these larger rocks. So in that vase, you put a rock in there. It's harder to do, but you get it in there. And then all the little sand things, if you make space for that rock, when you sprinkle all the little sand in there, it's going to find its way in there around the rock, but you're still going to get everything done. And then you're going to bend the arc of the company towards your long-term vision.
And the beauty of that is that this is what I'm saying. When you do only for the leadership team, it's fine. The impact is good. But when you do it across a team, the impact is huge. Because if you think about it, every person in our company has minimum 1 to 2 rocks. So if we are 70 people, we're doing 100 projects every few months that are getting the company better. So every 90 days, we have another company, a much better one. And every 90 days is going to happen the same. What are the issues? What are problems we're having? Why are we not achieving our goals? What do we need to do that? And then we go back again. But the impact of that is amazing. We have done, I don't know, 500 projects, 600 projects since we started.
That's pretty amazing. And it all is a way to help bend to your long-term vision. And I mean, it's been instrumental in a lot of the things that I've done in my life. And I'm a huge proponent of it. You mentioned the implementer that you found. Would you ever try implementing this on your own, or do you recommend getting a coach? Did you try to implement it on your own, or did you always have a coach or an implementer that was there to give you the structure and the support to get it done?
I mean, after 2 years, we said we already know the system and everything, so we do the quarterly meetings and the year meetings now by our own. We decide who in our team is going to be the implementer, so who's going to direct the meeting, because you need that. But once you have the materials, because they give you a lot of materials, and you know the methodology, I think you can implement it. At the beginning, I don't recommend to do that because there is a lot of data and backgrounds and examples, and especially how to move the meeting forward. Because this is a meeting in which people like to talk. So people like to talk and go on and very high level and start discussing and so on. And the meeting is really strict about that. It's no, this is not time for us. It's time to decide the ropes, the issues, and go on. So it's really straightforward. And if you don't have an implementer to help you being the bad guy and put that time, it's a mess. It's not gonna work.
Wow. Yeah. So for all you listeners, I'll put a link to that book, Traction, in the show notes. I think I've done it before, but it's pretty awesome, and it just helps with everything. And it's a very Socratic. The book's done in a very Socratic way, like it's a real life, or quote, real life experience, but you're like seeing it through the eyes of people having these challenges and how they work through it, and it's pretty great.
There is another one that is what the heck is yours?
Oh yeah, that's like the white paper, the shorter form version.
I would say read both if you want to understand it.
Hey everybody, we've been doing this podcast for over 3 years now, and one of the themes that consistently comes up is sustainability. And I'm just really proud to announce that our sponsor, Berman Falk Hospitality Group, is the first within our hospitality industry to switch to sustainable and recyclable packaging, eliminating the use of styrofoam. Please check out their impact page in the show notes for more info.
Okay, so now going back to hospitality and creating those lasting memories. While you've been on your journey, you're now promoted to CEO. What is your long-term vision as far as the number of properties you have, the way that you help create these lasting memories for all of your guests that are using Stay U-nique? How does that tie in together?
I can tell you in EOS language. So our 10-year goal is to create 1 million memorable moments, and that's to everyone we touch, right? It's to our guests, to our owners, employees, providers, everything we touch.
So internal and external.
Yeah.
And not just guests staying, it's everyone.
No, it's everyone. Yeah. It's
Wow.
the cleaner, it's the maintenance guy, it's the guest that is staying with us. Everyone, we should be, what we want to accomplish is that everyone in our team is thinking all the time, how can we create a memorable moment for someone? And that's for everyone. It's not only for guests. And to do that, I think, well, no, I don't think our 3-year goal is to have 1,000 apartments or managing 1,000 apartments in 3 years. And that has changed, right? Because, and we can talk about regulations, but a year ago we changed the strategy a little bit. We were kind of divided in the portfolio into entire buildings and apartments by themselves in residential buildings. And now we have changed to focus only on entire buildings because we think it's going to be less painful politically wise in the future for us. And it's going to be a healthy strategy to grow.
So you're almost evolving more into a hotel, really, in essence, if you have the whole building, but there's still apartments within there, which allows you to keep materials and sheets and cleaning and everything in there and have scale within the building.
We're operators, and we think we can operate anything. That's a fine line, I would say. Operating I'm right now in our offices that is downstairs of a 32 apartment building in the city center of Barcelona. So I think if we can operate this, we can operate any hotel in urban cities.
And then, so the 10-year vision is to create 1 million, and is that your BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal, is to have 1 million memorable experiences?
Yes, and we changed it because we had a lot of things there. We had things related to EBITDA and things related to number of properties and so on, and we changed it last year to what's what we really want, why we created this company, or why the founder Enrique created this company.
And that's also really important for everyone to know is you can have these 10-year goals. The odds of the 10-year thing happening, I would say, is less than 30%, right? It could be higher, but it's also important to understand that the reason you have a 10-year goal and get really clear on that 10-year goal is because it cascades down into everything else, right? And then every year you reevaluate what your 10-year goal is. To get to your 3-year goal of basically doubling or tripling, almost 2.5-ing in size, right, between now and 3 years from now, what are your biggest challenges that you're seeing as you're trying to create these memorable experiences that are frictionless and that, that it's way more good than bad?
There are two challenges, right? The first one is in growth in portfolio, because there are two ways you can handle this growth, or there are two ways our business model works. You have the variable rent, in which you charge a percentage of the income of the property. There's normally between 15 and 25%, and then you have the fixed rent apartments or buildings that it's more common in hotels, for example. Is in which I rent this building or I rent this property, and whatever I get from there, then it's fine. It's a fixed rent lease, and it's a 5-year or 10-year contract. So there you have a challenge to growth, right? Because the best buildings are the ones that are more expensive. So anyone wants to pay that and are reducing their margin in order to get that build. So you need to compete with that, and it's difficult. Um, and in the other part, in the operations, is that the more you grow, of course, the operations become more complex. It's not the same doing, I don't know, 60 checkouts per day than 120. And then you need to decide, for example, we're opening in Sevilla, we're opening in Malaga, we're checking to open Madrid. Are you going to have local teams? Are you going to centralize everything in Barcelona? How are you going to do it? We have also an international team. So yeah, the operations become more complex. You need to have a good system, a good PMS, revenue management, for example. You need to have the tools, also the data, smart revenue. Technology is going to help the chatbots, for example. Is it too much chatbot? Is it too less chatbot? Which is the middle point? How do you train the chatbot so it's the best chatbot of the short-term rental companies?
When do you get a human to intervene for a chatbot? That's a great question. Like as it is now, if people are chatting to just get the FAQs done and like tap into some kind of large language model that you've built for yourselves of all the normal back and forth and FAQs, at what point does a human interject?
Again, I think you need to measure and you need to keep changing little things. That's something that we have tried not to do, right? To die in the bureaucracy of everything. So we change things all day. Let's try something new and then let's measure how it was. The guest communication improved or it went lower. So you change it again. And if we make a mistake, nothing happens. Let's change it again. And we keep changing things and then measuring if it's going up, if it's going down, and then until we find the correct measure, and then we said, okay, this is working, let's move to something else.
And then putting my furniture hat on, like just thinking of those large city block style apartments in Barcelona. Do you own any of those large like city block apartments, or are they more just a building?
Yeah, it's not entirely. It seems like it is, but there are different buildings in there.
Okay, so there's different buildings.
Yeah.
As you grow from individual apartments to doing more of these individual buildings, in the individual buildings, how many apartments are in the individual buildings typically? Just use Barcelona as an example.
I think between 20 and 40.
Between 20 and 40. And then when you have a long-term contract over managing those 20 to 40, how do you approach the furniture and the fixtures and the equipment within those apartments? Do you standardize them in the building and then across portfolio so that you can create some economies of scale and standardization, or do you keep them all unique and different?
Yeah, what we're checking now is that normally when we receive a building, there is two options, right? And around Spain, there's a conversion from office space to apartments, to short-term rental apartment, or you have a land that it's been under construction for a new building apartment, because investors are looking more into the residential sector of apartments in Spain. It's been under a lot of regulations, and it's not giving the numbers that anyone wants. So people are looking to put their money into hotels or apartments to rent in the short-term rental. So when we have a new building or a reconversion from an office to a building, then we send a design team. And then normally what is in the contract is that this is a 10-year contract. So we take care of the equipment and the furniture of the property. So we put everything there. They leave the apartment empty, but in very good conditions because it's not very new. And then we put everything inside. We send a designer and we try to do it. We do two things. One is we take risks because we think that the apartment that you are staying for 3 nights is not the same as the apartment you are staying for your whole life. So maybe for your whole life, you want something more quiet, something more neutral. And I don't know, if you're staying 3 days, you want something bold. So we try to take a risk in that. And then, of course, very good quality products that last long. And then, yeah, very similar. So we can try the apartment or the building as a multi-unit building. So if you book this one, you may get this one. So revenue management wise is much more profitable.
Interesting. And then I guess you've been there for 6 years, so you haven't seen a full 10-year contract come to an end, right? Or maybe there's some 10-year contracts were in place before you started, but I would assume that you'd want those 10-year contracts when they do come to an end to reconvert. And when that does happen, do you look at renovating or repositioning the whole hotel or refresh? How do you look at refreshing these within a building and then across your portfolio? Like, are there any standard things from operating supplies to furniture that you've tied throughout your properties or would like to tie throughout your properties over the long term?
Normally those negotiations come with a renovation, right? Okay, so I'm gonna make a renovation in the property. I cannot make it when there is 1 year less of a contract. We need to renew it, and normally that renew it also come with an increase of the rent. So we need to make the numbers again and say, is this gonna be profitable or not?
And you're asking the owners to do the renovation, correct?
No, we are doing the renovation in exchange of a renewal of the 10-year lease. So let's do another 10-year, and I do a renovation of the property.
Of all the units within the property?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If we have not done it before, because normally 10 years is too much. We take in consideration that the furniture normally 5 years and it's too old, and then we need to change it. So we keep making changes because we do supervisions. We have a team of supervisions that constantly go to the apartments, check out what is wrong or what is not in a good condition, and then they create a task for the design team, and the design team goes and changes that specific thing. So we keep the apartments fresh every time.
With the scale that you're at, you have an internal design team, or do you use third-party interior designers and architects?
We have done both, but money-wise, we have decided that it's much better to have an internal team that it's renovating. I don't know, we're launching 12 apartments per month now, or 10 apartments per month now. So doing that with an external team, we do externalize part of the maintenance. For example, when we have to do a building, right? Then we do the shopping, and all those shoppings go to the external provider that has an storage. And those guys are going to store everything that we have buy, and then they are going to translate it to the apartment so they can assemble all the pieces and all the furniture. So these guys are dedicated to store whatever thing we buy and then to put everything together in the apartment as we say they should. So this makes that we don't need to have a storage, and we don't have to have a lot of maintenance guys that are assembling pieces.
And I'm sure as you grow from 420 to 1,000 to 10,000, each level of growth, and you're constantly having to look inward to see how are we managing the best? Do we do this inside? Do we outsource it? I'm curious, like to have 420 apartments in your portfolio, and as you continue to grow, how many other companies like yourself that are short-term property management companies, maybe not as sophisticated as you, but how many other competitors of yours exist in Spain at that level of, let's say, 300 or more apartments?
I wouldn't say too much. I would say maybe 3 or 4 big players per city.
Wow.
And then it's very squatted. There's a lot of people that is managing 5 to 6 apartments.
There's probably hundreds of them.
Yeah, they don't even have a company. They're just freelancers that say, I have 5 apartments and it's getting fine. And it's not so complex, and I prefer to stay like this.
But some owners may prefer to have that hands-on from that independent freelance manager who's like fully focused on that. Like, how do you manage those expectations or find those clients that see the value in working with a much bigger company?
In two sense, I think that the first one is security. When you are pitching for a building, those competitors are gone because they are not going to enter there. It's impossible. They cannot compete. And then security that we are a stable company and that we're not going to leave you handed in case of COVID or things like that. And the other one is the tools that we are able to implement. For example, I bet a person that has a 5 that has 5 apartments doesn't have a revenue manager. We have 6 people in the revenue management team that are checking at how we can sell at the higher price every day, and that's impossible for a short operator.
Okay, now, because this is all fascinating to me, as like I don't really know anything about the space, so you're satisfying my curiosity. If you were to say within Europe, how many short-term rental companies exist that have 300 or more units under their umbrella?
You have since 2010, you have I would say 3 to 5 very huge competitors that are trying to eat the market. You have Numa, you have Lime Home, Guest Ready. So we are talking about 2,000 units, 3,000 units.
If each of those 3 to 5 competitors.
Yeah, you
Wow.
had Sonder. You had Sonder at the beginning. You had Bacasa that were different.
But I haven't heard anything about Sonder recently.
Well, they went broke and they become partners of Marriott. So Marriott took them into their portfolio.
Oh, so that's I missed that whole memo because I don't pay attention to the space. So is that the new Sonder became Apartments by Marriott?
No, Sonder became a brand of Marriott. So you have Apartments by Marriott, but you also have Sonder in their Marriott portfolio.
Oh, I had no idea. See what happens when you don't pay attention to things? Okay.
Of these huge companies, I think that's the idea. They're going to get both sooner or later.
Okay, so take the huge ones who are multi-thousand. Let's go back to that, let's say 300 to 1,000 units. How many competitors do you have in Europe?
I would say you can take 20 per country.
700 or so, I would say. 500 to 700?
Depends if you take that. Spain, it's receiving 80 to 100 million tourists a year. So it's a big market. And 30% of tourists are coming to short-term rentals apartments.
But I would say that this, let's say, upper mid-scale of size for short-term apartment rental companies like yourself at Stay U-nique, globally, they didn't really exist 15 years ago, right?
No.
Did they exist 10 years ago?
Yeah.
They started, you started to see them maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, we were one of the first in Spain for sure. But
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what I want to get into with that, like, to me, it's like a really evolving and fast growing industry that the normal hotel industry sees as a threat, right? And also city councils and like politicians, and I read about it, like Airbnbs are killing or driving up just regular long-term rental costs for residences. But
yeah,
as big as this and as fast as this growing segment is, it has to be such a small amount of actual places to live in a city. Like in Barcelona, I don't know how many short-term rentals there are, but I would imagine that there's 10 or 100 or 1,000, I don't even know, more actual regular apartments. So is a lot of this, I don't know what to call it, bluster or negative press that short-term rentals get, is it just politics by the bigger guys, like the bigger traditional hospitality players that are trying to like stifle the growth of you? Because I don't know, I'm sure there's a balance, but just I have no idea. Give us some framework here, some perspective.
Perfect. So for example, in Barcelona, we have Barcelona was one of the first markets that got a regulation 10 years ago. So in 2014, they say there's going to be 10,000 licenses in Barcelona. That's 1% of the housing market of Barcelona. And that's it. We're not going to give any other license.
And that's still the case, only 10,000? Yep. Oh, no kidding. So there's a cap.
That's a good point, right? Because you cut the amount of licenses that grown since 2014, and you said that's it. But the prices in Barcelona has keeping rising from there. And then you have the case of New York, that it was the same. You had 1% of short-term rentals, and then New York decided no, we're going to ban all of this sector. And then if you ask, have prices in New York has going down? No, they have keep going up. What they have gone up is the prices of hotels in New York. It's 15% in the ADR, which is crazy.
Wow.
So I don't think this is a solution. I think you need to get rid of the illegal market, because you should not be able to rent this if you don't have a license, and you need to be strict with that. But we are in favor of the regulations because it makes the sector more professionalized and everything is better.
You're in favor of the regulation, but not necessarily the restriction of 1% of apartments.
Regulation, okay. Prohibition, no.
Okay.
A prohibition, I think, is never good.
So you must be struggling with this with all of your markets that you're in. How do you see, like, if you look forward to the next 10 years, so 2035, let's just say, is there still a cap, or is there still a prohibition, or has it been relaxed? Like for me, I think one of the solutions is just add more inventory, because that drives prices down. But I feel like there's a lot of protected interests, whether they're real estate developers or hotels or just homeowners. They don't want more inventory to come in because it could potentially lower their value of their investment or home. But it's kind of counterintuitive, because if you really want to lower price of housing, which is an issue everywhere, you should just build more inventory.
That's exactly what we say in Spain. But in Spain, since the housing crisis in 2008, the level of construction has keep going down because people didn't want to enter in that market because they were scared. And first and second, the politicians weren't making it any easier. So at least in Spain, the politicians know that they need the help of the private sector in order to grow the inventory. They just don't want to work together. So it's easier to say the narrative and to put the narrative in people's minds of Airbnb is killing the chances of people to live in a good way, or it's increasing the prices. But they know this is not going to solve anything. They may get them to get elected in the next elections, because when you say the name Airbnb and prohibition, I don't know why, but everyone goes crazy and say, "Great, this is gonna help."
But it doesn't help. You need to build more inventory of everything.
Yes.
Okay, so if it's 10 years in the future, it's 2035, you're delivering 1 million memorable experiences, both internally and externally, to your guests and other stakeholders around. How does this dislocation or misunderstanding of prohibition versus regulation, like, what's a solution there? Like, what would be a great outcome if you were to manifest this 10 years in the future?
What I would say in two different parts, right? First, from the city or from the country, what I wanted to see. I'm not from here. I'm from another place, from Peru, but I have lived here for the past 6 years. And if I want a desire for this country, is that the private sector and the public sector gets together and start making plans and say, hey, how can I help you? Instead of making the sector more regulated and more complicated to enter, is how can I make it easier for you in order so you want to construct more? Because the private sector doesn't want to add more inventory because the regulations are crazy. So they prefer to go into another. This is all business, and this is what we need to understand. Because if not, I want somewhere else where I can make more money. And in the second part, for a company or for Stay U-nique, I hope that in 10 years we are, as we said, we are operators and we're managing everything. So we're managing more buildings of apartments, we're managing hotels, and we have become a brand, a recognized brand for accommodation in Europe, and primarily in Spain.
And then for the people that want to prohibit, not the politicians who are using it as a way to get elected, because people can really, it's like demagoguery. Like, people can say, oh yeah, it's Airbnbs or short-term rentals that are ruining this. What do you say to the politicians about, like, if you could say, if I gave you a magic wand and you could be like, guys, you got to stop with this, because here's this, the private and the public sector have gone together and here's a good outcome. Like, how do you get to change their hearts and minds that 1% is not enough and we need to build more inventory?
I don't know, because they know the data. That's what is scary. That's what's the most scariest for me. They have the data. They have everything. They know it. and they don't want to do it. So it's really scary. I think the system is not working.
And it's not just in Spain, it's everywhere.
Yeah, we have done something wrong, and the system is not working. I don't know what, because I'm too young, but you should know more than me. Uh,
I am older, but not necessarily wiser. Definitely older.
Mm.
Yeah, it just seems amazing to me. It just seems like build more sensibly, but like don't overextend yourself. There's a balance where all types of real estate can come on the market that could make it more affordable for young people to buy homes and buy apartments or rent in cheaper apartments or do whatever they want to do. Now it's like I feel like so many people, especially the young, are being left in the dust.
yeah, it's harder to get a home. It's harder to rent something. It's harder to get a property, because properties has become or has been for all the time a, a, a sector in which people put their money in investing. So, but for example, I'll give you the example of Barcelona, right? And how you can help the private sector to work. In Barcelona right now, you have a regulation that if you want to construct a building, then you need to give 30% of that building into VPO, we call them. It's a vivienda de protección.
Like affordable housing or something like that.
Yes.
Under market or something. Yeah.
So if I'm saying, if you're selling 100 hats, and then I'm saying to you, you need to sell 30 of those at cost, what's going to happen? Then I need to sell all the other ones much higher in order to be profitable, or I don't want to construct here and I go to Madrid, or I go to Lisbon, or to Rome, or to whatever. And that's just one tiny example of something that you could take out, and people will start contracting. But it's every day it's a new regulation.
Yeah, it seems like that's a doom loop for just continued high housing costs.
Yeah, that's why I don't understand it, because it's so easy to look at it. But
yeah, I'm very curious about this. Okay, so now going back to like your origins and being in Peru and having an events business, and now you're the CEO of this fast-growing, impactful short-term rental business. If you could go back to your younger self before you came to Spain, what advice do you have for yourself?
Be patient, I think. I think people of my generation and young people are not patient, and they want all the success and everything for tomorrow, and they get out of university and say, then I need to earn this amount of money and I need to eat tomorrow, and so on. And that doesn't happen. Just years of effort and years of hard work, and I haven't been so patient. I built a business when I was, 22, and I wanted to have a lot of things and all that. But when I started to be patient, and I said, if I do the hard things, and if I do the hard work, results are gonna come. And it just has been that the key, I think. Hard work and patience.
I love it. Sebastián, this has been really satisfying to me, because I'm learning something about I know nothing about. And I love that you're working within the framework of EOS. And I appreciate just seeing how it's such a flexible system and also applied to hospitality and creating frictionless experiences for guests and stakeholders. And yeah, it's just something I don't know about. So I'm just thank you for letting me learn. And I appreciate it.
Thanks to you, and this has been amazing.
And you're most welcome. If people wanted to learn more about you or Stay U-nique, what's a good way for them to do that?
Just add me on LinkedIn. That will be great. Or if you want, you can also go to our website, that is stayunique.es. And if you want to invest in the short-term rental in Spain, I think we are the best partner for that.
Awesome. Fantastic. And thank you to all of our listeners, because without you, I wouldn't be able to talk to people like Sebastián and learn from them about things I don't know much about. And then hopefully this impacted your ideas and feelings on what hospitality is, and housing, and constant improvement, and being obsessive about constant improvement. And if it has, thank you. And if you think someone else could benefit from listening to this, please pass it along. We grow by word of mouth. And don't forget to like and subscribe and leave comments. It makes a big difference. I think we're a top 50 design podcasts on Apple Podcasts. It'll be great to advance even more. So just leave comments in your favorite listening platform, like, subscribe, and all those things, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you.